last session, we discussed about the Terraform introduction, what is meant by Terraform and how we can create the Terraform, how we can install Terraform and how we can work with Terraform. So these are the things that we discussed in the last session. And in this session, we are going to discuss about the concepts related to
So what is the basics or what is the concept of Terraform and how we are going to work with that and how we are going to work with the configuration and all the things we are going to discuss in this session. Okay, so uh, let's see. Anyways, those who are attending newly to the session, hi guys, I'm Chaitanya. So I'm having 13 years of IT experience. Currently, I'm working as a DevSecOps engineer in a top MNC company into the research and development. So this is about myself, and yeah. So let's discuss about the concept. So the concept what we are going to discuss right now here is we'll be discussing about the concepts related to uh, Terraform. Okay. So Terraform and Jenkins. So we will have a clear-cut picture after completing of Terraform. We will have a clear-cut picture on Jenkins configuration. Now, first things first. When we are coming to the Terraform, so Terraform is an infrastructure asset code. Terraform is an infrastructure asset code where we are going to create the infrastructure either in the cloud environments like AWS or Azure or GCP, any AWS, Azure or GCP through uh, through through the Terraform coding. Okay, so we are going to write the code for creating the infrastructure. Okay, so with the help of that code, what we are going to do here is we are going to generate the resources, and not only that, in the local infra also, or else in the on-premises environment, if you are having the virtual machines, VMware. So with the for VMware also we can use the Terraform to create the infrastructure. So here we are going to use the code to create the resources. Okay. So now how we are going to write the code? For example, if you are working for Java, you will be writing the code in the Java format. If you are working for what I can say, if you are working for Python, you might be what I can say, you might be writing the code in the Python language. So like that, whenever you are working for the Terraform, so Terraform is having its own language, and that language is called as HCL language. Okay, HashiCorp language, where we are going to write the code. Okay, so with the help of this HCL language, we can write the code and we can generate the resources, and as well as we can use the resources to configure or else to create another resource. So this is the language which we are going to use in the Terraform. And when we coming back to the configuration over here, once the Terraform is created, once we write the code, then what we are going to do? What is the workflow for Terraform? So we will write the code. Once the code is written, then the code will be validated. Okay, whether the code is written properly or not. If there is any error, then that code should be validated first. Okay, so after validating, it will go for the dry run, or else I will call it as plan. So what are the resources that can be created with the help of the code? Okay, so how many resources can be created with the help of the code? So those things can be validated, and that will be planned. So how many number of resources will be there, and what we are going to create with the resources, and what are the different, I mean, what is the resource that can be created with this code. So that can be seen, or else that can be shown in the plan configuration. Planning means dry running. Okay, just like a test run. Okay, dry run. And then finally we will apply it. Apply means resource creation. So with the help of the code, it will be created. So this is the configuration, or else this is the workflow of your Terraform. So the first and foremost thing is we have to write the code, and then we have to validate the code. Finally, we will dry run the code, and finally what is going to happen? The resources can be created. Apply means creating the resources. So this is the concept of your Terraform workflow. Okay. So, any questions up to now? Do you understand what is the concept that we are going to deal with, and how we are going to work with? Any questions here? Up to now, whatever we have discussed, any questions? Are you able to understand?
Hi, this is Supraja. So
Mm-hmm.
my question is like, so this is similar to like whenever we write a Java thing, right? We write the code, we validate means we test it and then we deploy it. So is it similar to that? Like validation is nothing but the same. And what does the dry run mean? Is that a deployment kind of thing?
No, it is not a deployment kind of thing. It is all about once the code is validated. Okay, it's simply like which resources can be created. Okay. So before what I have to say here is before creating the resources, you just need to test it out whether the resources can be created, which resources can be created. If I have to tell you, uh, if some project you are taking, okay, you have to create a software for a particular company. So they will ask you like proof of concept, POC. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I have an idea.
Okay, so what does that POC means? You don't need to create everything. So you have to give like a sample thing. Okay. Here
Yeah.
dry run is also
Blueprint.
like, yeah, it's like a blueprint. Which resources can be created? Okay. For example, you want to create an VPC, or else you want to create an EC2 instance. Before
Mm.
creating that, what will be, it is just going to give you like a plan, just like a blueprint. So these resources will be created with these particular IP addresses, with this particular name, like kind of thing. So that is called as plan. And once you
Mm.
have applied that, the resource will be actually created in the cloud environment. Okay. So that is called
Oh,
as apply.
oh, okay, okay. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So that's about your concept of Terraform. Any questions, guys? Good. So now how we are going to get the Terraform that I already shown you yesterday. You have to download the binary from the website called as terraform.io. Okay, you have to give this URL terraform.io and go to install and select the, or else you can simply download the binary. I already had that, so I'm not going to download it, but you have to download, unzip it, and provide the paths for the binary. So that I have already shown you yesterday. So any which ways, I'm just showing you again. So once you have downloaded it, so you will have this what I can say, zip file. Extract the zip file. So you are going to get like this folder. So inside that you will have the Terraform binary is available. So copy this Terraform binary and go to any location. So for example, I will go to tools. So there is a folder called as, in C drive. I am having tools folder. Inside the tools folder, put the Terraform. Okay, so whatever the binary that we have downloaded, put it over there and then provide the path. Okay, so I'm just putting this Terraform, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give the path in the environmental variables. Okay, go to the system properties, advanced environmental variables. In the path, I have to provide that particular code. So, I mean, in the path, I have to provide the particular path and save it. So once you have done that, then what is going to happen? Open the PowerShell. Open the PowerShell. PowerShell or else terminal, anything, and then Terraform version. So when you do this, then it is going to show you the current Terraform version. Okay. So now let us discuss about the basic configuration. What is Terraform and how we are going to work with the Terraform, and how we have to write the code in the Terraform. So for that, I am going to use the IDE. Okay. So the IDE which I am going to use over here is what I can say, Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to use the Visual Studio Code. So let me go to the Terraform. Okay. I'm not going very in deep into this. I just want to tell you about the basics. Why? Because this is a demo. So I don't want to get you more into the technicalities and feel poor about that. But just having said that, just let us touch the concepts of how we can create the resources. So now what we can do here. Okay. So this is the Visual Studio Code which I'm going to use. And when we are creating or else when we want to write any code, for example, if you want to write a code in Python, then you are going to write or else then you are going to create a file called as app.py or else models.py. If you want to write a code, the extension will be, if you want to write a code in Java, the extension will be with like .java. So like that here, whenever we want to create any file or else whenever we want to write the code in Terraform, the file extension will be .tf. So for example, I will go with the main.tf. The names you can write any name. It is not like there is a conventional method that I need to use only this particular name. So it is not like that. So you can use any name. So here I am using main.tf, or else I can use provider.tf, or else I can use any name. So no problem. So Terraform is not an name dependent. Okay. So here you can provide any name. I just gave main.tf. So .tf in the sense it's a Terraform related file where we are going to write the code in the HCL language, and you need to install the extensions. So related to Terraform, just to provide the name over here, Terraform. We already installed that. I'm just repeating it again, and install any one of the Terraform extension. Okay. Now once we have installed the Terraform extension, now what we are going to do. So first of all, we need to tell Terraform that we have to explain, or else we just need to tell the Terraform that I am using this particular cloud. Okay, so for example, I am using AWS as an infrastructure. As an infrastructure tool for my application environment. So whatever the application that I want to create, so the application should be installed on a server or also installed on an EC2 instance in AWS environment. Then I have to tell Terraform that the infrastructure provider is AWS. If I am using Azure, then I have to Terraform that the infrastructure provider is Azure. If I am using GCP, the infrastructure provider is GCP. what happens when we tell this to Terraform? So Terraform will analyze the provider. Okay, so the user want to create AWS. I mean, the user want to create the infrastructure in AWS. So related to those plugins, okay, related to AWS, it is going to download the plugins. For example, I want to create EC2 instance. So the provider is AWS. So EC2 related plugins will be downloaded and VPC related plugins will be downloaded. S3 bucket related plugins will be downloaded. DynamoDB or else RDS related plugins or else any plugins is going to be downloaded related to the provider. So when we use the provider, then Terraform will understand and download the related plugins so that it can create the resources. So let's see what is going to happen here. For example, I will provide provider AWS. So when I give this, or else if I don't give this, what is going to happen? First, let us see. CD colon CD Terraform. This is my current location. So if you see here, we have main.tf is there. Okay, let me save. If I don't provide the code and initiate the Terraform, no, Terraform init. Okay, we are telling, I mean, already Terraform is installed on my laptop or else on my machine. So I am trying to initiate that. So when I try to initiate that, it is going to tell you initialization backend provider plugins. Terraform initiated. But what are the plugins that should be downloaded? So for that, we need to provide the provider, I mean, who is the which cloud we are using, or else which local infrastructure, whether we are using VMware or else we are using any cloud environment like AWS, Azure, that we have to tell. Otherwise, if you create the resources also, it will ask you for provider. Okay, so who is the infrastructure provider? So for that, what I will do, provider AWS. I will give just you like this. When I give this and then again, if I reinitiate this, see here, finding the latest version of HashiCorp AWS, installing HashiCorp AWS version 6.21.0. So no, I want a particular similar version of AWS. I want the AWS version 5. Then you have to specify the proper versioning. So we will discuss about this, how we are going to view the versioning over here. Terraform required underscore version is equal to what is the Terraform version that we have to use and what is the AWS version that we have to use, that we will see in the next session. But as of now, we are just providing the provider details. Okay, so when we provide this provider details, if you see here, automatically a folder got created. .terraform folder got created. Previously, we used to have only a single file called as main.tf. But once Terraform is initialized with the provider, it is installing and as well as it is creating a .terraform folder. Inside this .terraform folder, you will have the plugins. So let's see. Okay, so it has been created. Now, next what I want to do here is, here you can see, these are the Terraform folders. Inside that you will have the provider related information, and if you go inside that, you will be having AWS and whatever. So the plugins, everything will be available inside that folder. So that's it. That is about that .terraform directory. The next one is we need to write the code. Before I write the code, now what should be happen? Try to understand here. So I have my Terraform installed in my computer. Okay, so this is my workstation. Inside the workstation, I am having the Terraform. And with the help of Terraform, I want to create the resources in the AWS environment. So this is the AWS environment. So inside my AWS account, I want to create the resources. So how I can create the resources? So first of all, my laptop or else from my laptop, I need to log in into this AWS account. For logging into this AWS account, inside that account, I need to have an user account. Without user account, I cannot be able to log in into my AWS account. Simple. If you are having a laptop and inside the laptop you are having the operating system. So if you want to access that operating system and if you want to create any software inside that, or else if you want to do anything inside the computer, first of all, you need to log in into the computer. Without logging into the computer, you cannot install anything or else you cannot work with anything. So the same thing applies here also. When you want to create the resources in the AWS environment, in a particular AWS account, I'm talking about, I'm going to use AWS in the Terraform. So that's why I'm talking about the AWS environment. If you are familiar with Azure, we can discuss about the Azure also. If you are having an Azure account, and if you want to create a resource in Azure account, then what you can do, you need to have an account inside that. You need to have an user account inside that AWS account or Azure account. So now let me show you. I will log in into my AWS account, sign into the console. So this is my root account, whatever the AWS account that I am logging in. This is I'm logging as a root user. Root user in the sense administrator who will have all the privileges. So the root user account cannot be provided in the Terraform. Why? Because he will have all the privileges either to create, delete, and everything. Either he can delete the users and as well as he can delete the resources and everything. So I don't want to provide the root user for a normal Terraform developer, or else, for example, this AWS account is maintained by an administrator, AWS administrator. So that AWS administrator don't want to provide the complete privileges for a developer. There is a Terraform developer is there. Okay, Terraform developer or else infrastructure developer is there. Infrastructure architect is there. So this administrator who is maintaining this AWS account don't want to provide the complete privileges on this AWS account. So what this AWS administrator is going to do here is he is going to create an account. So I will show you how we can create an account. Hold on. Hmm. You need to log in into the IAM. Okay, you have to go into the IAM. In the IAM, you have to create the user. So I will create a user called as Terraform user. Terraform user. And next, I'm not going to provide any sort of permissions. Next, and create the user. So now we have created this user, which means that this is the AWS administrator created an user account so that this user account will be helpful in Terraform or also for the Terraform infrastructure developer to create the infrastructure. So right now the user doesn't have any sort of permissions. Okay, so whoever are the user that is created inside this AWS account doesn't have any sort of permission. So what is the user that we created here? We created Terraform underscore user. So this user doesn't have any sort of permissions and doesn't have any sort of accessibility. So if the user has to access this AWS account to create the resources, first he need to have the accessibility. Okay, so for providing the accessibility, I'm going to go for Terraform user security credentials, and I'm just creating the access key and secret access key. If you know about AWS, you will understand this configuration. But if you are having any confusions, please let me know about that. Next, and create access key and secret access key. Here we are having access key and secret access key. What is access key? Access key is like an identity for that user, just like your username. So, and the next one is secret access key is like a password for that user. Just for your understanding, I'm telling you like this. Okay. So access key and secret access key is generated for the user, so that what is going to happen, the user is able to execute the configurations. Okay, he will be able to log in into the AWS account. Okay, so now you understand. Apart from understanding about the Terraform and all the things, please let me know what did you understand about this particular configuration. Do you understand what we have done right now? Any confusions here? We created, simply I'm just giving a single sentence, we created a user in AWS account, so that with the help of that user we are able to log in into the AWS account and create the resources. So this is why we are creating the user account in AWS environment. Okay, now you understand about that. Any questions here? Any questions, any confusions?
No.
Okay, now as we have created the user account, and we are saying that, okay, and we are saying that, Vijay, whatever you are asking, I will answer all your questions, but I'm talking about why we created the user account and why we are working with that. And once it is completed, once we integrate this AWS plugin into the Terraform code, and once it is completed, then I will answer at the end of the session. So it is all the topics which we have to discuss at the end of the session. So whatever the questions that you are asking, I will discuss over there. So now what I will do here, there will be a hierarchy for using the credentials. What is the hierarchy for using the credentials? Hierarchy, or else what I can call it as, okay, let me call it as a hierarchy itself. So precedence, I can call it as a precedence. What is the precedence means? So now in the code, I can use the credentials. So how I can use the credentials? Simply provider AWS Terraform. So if you can see the code, yesterday you asked me, no, so how we are going to get the code? Simple. For every resource, you will have the code over here. So this I will tell you. Required provided. This is the AWS version. Okay. So here you have to provide the credentials, but it is not a recommended practice to provide the credentials in the code. If you provide the credentials in the code and update in the GitHub, some might misuse that credentials, but this is the precedent. So what is meant by, what is the first precedence, or else what is the first priority that will be given by your Terraform is that, so Terraform will look for the credentials inside the code. Okay, so it will look for the credentials inside the code. So these are the user credentials which I can use to create the resources. So one thing you need to understand here is, yesterday we created a user. Yesterday we created a user called as Anand. Whoever has attended for the last session, they know about this. But if you don't know, no problem. So yesterday we created a user called as Anand, and we updated. Here Anand is having EC2 full access, which means that Anand user is having the complete access to create the instances, to create the VPC, to create the subnet and everything. So he is having the full permissions. Now what we have done here is, let me show you that. So we created Anand user and we updated his credentials inside my computer. So there is a folder called as .aws folder is created. Inside the .aws folder, we are having two files. One is the credential file and the other one is configuration file. So these are the two files that are created inside the .aws directory. Inside the credentials file, we have updated the access key and secret access key of the user Anand. So now in my laptop, I am having a user in .aws directory where he is having the full permissions on EC2 instance. but Terraform will not take this credentials. Okay, so Terraform will not take this credentials. So the user is Anand. So what Terraform is going to do, there is a precedence. So the precedence is that first of all, Terraform will look after the user credentials inside the code. That is the main precedent it is going to take. So inside the code, if you are having credentials, then Terraform will manage that. So those credentials will be taken and that user account or else that user permissions will be taken. Even though the user is having full permissions on EC2 in my laptop. For example, let me go to the C drive. Where is this? Users. And then AWS account. Inside this AWS account, I said, so we have the credentials file will be there. So in the credentials file, what you are having the access ID and secret access key of the user Anand. So if you see here, when we create the Anand user is having the security credentials like access key and secret access key. Here you can see L6G7SW5. So that is what last line. L6G7SW5. So this is the user account of Anand. So which means that the Anand credentials are already available in my laptop. So whenever I try to get the details, I can get the details. Okay, I can get the EC2 details. Let me show you that. I will go to PowerShell. In the PowerShell, I will execute a AWS command. AWS EC2 describe -vpcs -region US-east-1. When I give this, I can get the details. Why? Because it is going to that Anand credentials. Okay, but when we are using the Terraform, in the Terraform, we have used the credentials, and these credentials are for the user, Terraform user. Okay, these are the credentials for the user, Terraform user, for which I don't have any permissions. As I don't have any permissions for the user and I am using those credentials, Terraform will not be able to create any resources. For example, if I go with a resource, AWS_VPC, and the name is demo VPC, and then I will go with the cider block is equal to 10.100.0.0. So I will tell you where you have to find this code. Don't worry. And then enable DNS hostnames is equal to true. And the tags for the VPC is name tag. Name is equal to, I will simply give what I can say dev VPC. Okay. So I have given this, which means that the Terraform has to create a VPC. Okay. So the Terraform has to create a VPC. And the cider block is 10.100.0.0/16. Now, what Terraform will do here is Terraform will grab these credentials and try to log in into the AWS account and check for the permissions, whether the user is really having the permission to create the VPC or not. So when it is checking out that, so if you see Terraform FMT, I'm just formatting it, and then Terraform validate, I am validating the code, whether the whatever the code that we have written is that really correct or not. And then what I will do, Terraform plan. When I do the Terraform plan, which means I am doing the dry run, I am not creating the resources. So it is saying that it can create this particular resource. Okay, it can create this particular resource. When I try to create this, what is going to happen? So the resource is not yet created. It is trying to create the resource. And when I go for Terraform apply, so if you see the stages, first of all, we have written the code. So here you can see this is the code which we have written. Once the code is written, then we have validated the code, whether there are any syntax errors or else whether there are any bugs in the code. And then we are going with the Terraform plan just to check out what are the resources can be created. What is the actual way? I mean, it's just like a blueprint. Okay. And then when I go for Terraform apply, okay, what is going to happen? Let's see. Terraform apply. When I do this, so now what will be happening? So when I give S here, there you go. So you got an error. What is the error? Creating EC2 VPC operation error. Now creating EC2 VPC operation error EC2. Create VPC. HTTPS response error code is 403. Why? Because you are not authorized to perform this operation. So the user, Terraform user is not authorized to perform. So here you can see user and ARN name is Terraform underscore user is not authorized to perform this operation. So why? Because the credentials which I have incorporated in the code is the Terraform user credentials. So as I have incorporated Terraform user credentials and I don't have, the user doesn't have any sort of permissions. The user doesn't have any sort of permission either for EC2 access or else any permissions we did not provide it. So that's why what is happening here, it is saying that the user doesn't have the permissions to create the resources. So this is the first precedence. Okay, so this is the first precedence. And the next one will be, if I don't provide the credentials here, if I don't provide the credentials, then what Terraform is going to do? Let's see that. So now the next one will be, where are we? Yeah. So if I don't provide the credentials in the code, then what Terraform is going to do here is, the next precedence is that it is going to check in the environmental variables. In your system, you will have the system related environmental variables. Inside that environmental variables, it is going to check for the user credentials. If that credentials are there inside the environmental variables, which means here, okay, in the advanced, in the environmental variables, if you are having the access key and secret access key are available here, then it is going to take that environmental variables, access key and secret access key, and it is going to create the account, or else it is going to create the resources with that particular environmental variables. Okay, let me show you that. For example, I have removed this configuration. I just removed the a access key and secret access key. So the first thing is eliminated. So inside the code, we don't have the user credentials, but it is not a recommended practice to have the credentials inside the code. It is a very risky process, and as well as the GitHub and the repositories won't be able to taking those credentials. They will show you an error. But anyways, that's altogether a different concept. But as of now, it is not a recommended practice to have the credentials, security credentials inside the code. So I'm removing that security credentials from the code. Now what I will do, I will put the credentials in the environmental variables inside my computer. Okay, so how I can set the environmental variable? Simple. AWS environmental variables. Windows command prompt, or else you can go with the PowerShell also. Both are the same. Let me copy it. The access key is you already have the access key now. So 1 second. Let me take this access key and this is the secret access key. Okay, The region is not required. If you want region, I will go with the US East 1. Okay, let me copy it. Go back to the credentials, and I will just do like this. When I give this, and let me check sysdm.cpl. Let me close it. It's not required. Advanced environmental variables. Here we should have the access key and CPLs, which is not updated. One second. You can simply go with this one. Setex. I'll take these two. Let me copy it. I will give it over here. Good. Go back to sysdm.cpl. Here you can see the advanced environmental variables. Very good. Access key ID and secret access key are updated in the environmental variables. Now, when I try to execute this configuration again, so which configuration? When I try to execute the Terraform plan or else Terraform apply. So here you can see Terraform. Okay, now the credentials are not inside the code. When I try for Terraform plan, every time I'm going to do a dry run. So later what I will do, I will try to apply it. Okay, so Terraform apply. Now also you are going to get an error. And I give S. Again you got the error. So this time what Terraform is doing here? Again it is using the Terraform user account only. From where it is using the Terraform user account. So we don't have the credentials inside the code, but we have the credentials in the environmental variables. So that is the second presidency or a second hierarchy. So if the environment, if the credentials are not available in the code, then it will check in the environmental variables whether the user credentials are available. If the user credentials are available in the environmental variables, it is going to take those credentials and try to log in into the AWS account, and it will try to create the user. It will try to create the resources, but the user doesn't have the permissions to create the resources. It is going to throw you an error. Okay, so right now I will delete this and save it. So the last presidency is the least prioritized. Okay, so the credentials in the code is the first priority. The credentials in the environmental variables is the second priority. And finally, it will go to the .aws directory. So inside the .aws directory, we have the Anand user account. And Anand user account is having the permissions to create the resources. Why? Because he is having the complete EC2 access. So if you go to Anand user account, here you can see Amazon EC2 full access is there for the user. So now finally what is going to happen? Let me close it and reopen the PowerShell again. Okay, now if I go with Terraform apply, okay, so Terraform apply, yes, then it will collect. So it is going to check the credentials in the code. Inside the code, we don't have the credentials. Inside the environmental variables, we don't have the credentials, but in .aws directory, we have the credentials. So it is going to create a resource in the AWS environment. So if I go to the VPC, a VPC is generated. So VPCs, here you can see dev VPC with 10.100.0.0/16. It got created. So when a resource is created, automatically a state file is going to be generated. So it is a very, very important file. Whatever the resources that are created by using Terraform, everything is noted inside this state file. Okay. So how I can say, it's just like a log files. In the application point of view, if I have to tell you, anything that is modified inside the application, any user is logged in, or else anything, any single change has been done, any minor change is done, everything is updated in the log file. No, in the same manner, this is the Terraform state file where everything is updated. So this is the resource which is created. So the resource is dev VPC is created, and this is the VPC ID, and this is the CIDR block of that particular VPC, and this is the name of the resource that should be understandable by the Terraform. So this name is not the VPC name. This is the Terraform understandable name. Okay. So Terraform will check it out. So what is the VPC ID? For example, I want to create a subnet inside this VPC. So resource AWS underscore subnet, and this is the name that is understandable by the Terraform. So demo subnet 1. So this is the name. So in which VPC you want to create, VPC ID is equal to AWS underscore VPC dot demo VPC. It will go to the Terraform state file. Inside that, AWS underscore VPC demo VPC dot ID. So take this VPC ID. Inside this VPC only, you have to create the subnet. So dot ID. And then you have to provide the rest of the details, CIDR block and the name of the subnet, everything you have to provide inside that. But anyways, the point is Terraform state file is the heart of your entire Terraform. So if you miss this Terraform state file, Terraform will again go back to the stage 1 to recreate the entire resources. Already you have the resources created and all the information is available inside the state file. If unfortunately we miss that state file, Terraform will go blind and it will try to create the resources again. Okay, so that is not required. So then there will be a complete confusion state. Okay, so if you are collaborating with multiple Terraform architects or else multiple infrastructure architects, so one architect is already created a VPC, but unfortunately the Terraform state file got deleted. So now the second architect will try to create will try to create will try to execute the code. When he try to execute the code, what Terraform will do here is Terraform will check out in the state file, but state file is not there. Then what Terraform will do, it will try to recreate the VPC. So which means the complete messy thing will happen. Okay, confusions will happen. This user has created one VPC, and obviously the second collaborator is trying to create the VPC, then there will be a complete confusion will be there. So to overcome this, we need to have that state file in a safe location where we can save the state file, and how we are going to save the state file, how we are going to work with that. From tomorrow onwards, we will be learning about that concept. So this is the second demo which we have discussed about the Terraform and how users can be accessed and how user credentials can be served, and what is the precedence, and how we can create the resources. From tomorrow, we will start creating the resources one after the other, and slowly we will go into the Terraform functions, and then we will be discussing about the Terraform modules. Okay, so with the Terraform modules and Terraform Enterprise, we will wind up the session. So total, there will be somewhere like 8 different modules will be there in the Terraform. Okay, so 8 different concepts will be there inside the Terraform. I will give you the syllabus. Okay, I will share, DURGASOFT will share you the syllabus and you can check out that. Okay, so that's it from my end. If you have any further questions, you can ask me now. Questions, please. Nice question. What is a CIDR block? CIDR block is a network range. Okay, it is as simple as, like, for example, if there are 100 computers, all the 100 computers are within inside your company environment. I'm just giving an what I can say, layman example, but if I have to discuss about the CIDR block, I have to discuss about the entire network. Okay, so that is something which is not into the syllabus, but the point is cider block is like a very big network identity. Okay, so if there are 100 employees are there, so to which company the employees belongs to. Okay, so that will say that. So, for example, the employees are from Infosys, the employees are from Wipro, or else the employees are from TCS, like that. So, if some 1,000 employees are there, among those 1,000 employees, if I want to segregate a particular set of audience, a particular set of employees, then we will be defining that with the name of the company. So that is the network identity, or else that is the identity that we are going to provide for those employees. These employees belongs to Infosys. These employees belongs to TCS. Like how we are going to provide the identity and how many number of employees are there. So in the same manner, CIDR block is also okay. CIDR means classless inter-domain routing. Okay, so the CIDR block will also define how many resources can be created inside a network. That will define the network range. Okay, so IP address will be within that CIDR block itself. Whatever the CIDR block is there inside the CIDR block. For example, here I have given 10.100.0.0. So whatever the resources that are created, that will be created inside that CIDR block range itself. The IP address which I will assign to the EC2 instance will be 10.100.1.100, 10.100.10.100. So here you can see 10.100 is common. That is the network identity. So whatever the resources that are creating, those will be created inside that CIDR block range itself. Now you understand what is CIDR block? But that is an layman example. I got it. I did not dive into very technicalities. If I have to tell you about the CIDR block, I have to discuss about the networking for next 2 days. Okay, so that is not into the portion, but simply if I have to tell you in a layman language, it is just a network range where you can have multiple number of resources configured. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay, sir. Thank you. So, what's the duration of this course, sir? So, how long
The
will it?
duration will be 14 days, including
14.
Jenkins. Yeah, Terraform and
Okay.
Jenkins.
So, Jenkins, like, what all do we have in the Jenkins syllabus? Like,
I will provide you the total syllabus today itself. I will update in the portal. You can check it out, or else at least you can get it from the DURGASOFT. Okay.
oh, sure, sir. Thank you.
Any questions, guys? Do you understand the concept?
Yeah, Chaitanya, I have one question.
Yeah, correct.
Suppose if I remove this provider block, so what default provider it will consider? It won't.
No, it won't consider anything.
But
it will ask you for the provider.
Yeah, but when we ran the command Terraform init, it got success, right?
Yeah, it got success, but it did not give me the plugins, right?
Yeah, plugins not downloaded, nothing happened. But okay, so you mean to say it will success, but if I go with other command like Terraform plan and all, nothing will happen. Correct?
Nothing will happen. It should know, no. So
Yeah,
on to which provider I have to work with.
Yeah, okay. I expected an error, but it got executed, but it didn't download the plugin.
Plugins, yeah. Okay. Anything else, Vijay, Vinay, Durga? Okay. So maybe tomorrow we will have one more session, the last and final demo session. By tomorrow we are going to conclude the demos, and then we will go into the concept of main topics. Okay, functions and modules, which are very important. We will go through the another concept of Terraform also. So have a nice day, and we'll meet in the next session, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And sorry, Vijay, you have a question. I did not answer that. Just give me a second. You only asked me that, right? Yeah. So how to integrate with the Git integration, I will tell you. Okay. So we can update it onto the Git and everything. So it's just simple. See, it's just like an another coding language. How you are going to integrate a Java file. So it is just like that only. So if you have an application, do you know, are you a developer?
No, I'm just studying this.
Okay, no problem. So you have the code available inside the directory. You will update the code and you will initiate the Git and you can send the code into the GitHub. Okay. So it's not like, I will tell you. Okay. So we can update it and we can upload the code into the GitHub. From the GitHub, we can reuse the code with the multiple collaborators also. Okay.
Yes.
And Terraform and Jenkins enough to search for the job? No.
No.
As per the current scenario, Terraform and Jenkins are the primary tools. I won't say that they are not the primary tools. They are the primary tools. Terraform, Jenkins, Docker, and Kubernetes. These are the 4 important tools which the companies are very, they are looking after the DevOps candidates. Okay, so whoever are the candidates who are applying for any position, so the companies are looking for, does the candidate is having a good knowledge in Terraform, good knowledge in Docker and Kubernetes and Jenkins. Jenkins or any CI/CD pipelining tool, either it might be Jenkins or else GitHub Actions, any CI/CD pipelining. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So weekend batch, we don't have a weekend batch. This is a continuous batch. Even in weekend also, we are having a session. Within 14 days, we are going to complete the entire concepts. Okay.
Yes.
Right then. So have a nice day and we'll meet in the next session, guys. Bye. Thank you.